What if I told you that setting a massive, ambitious goal is actually like the fastest way to guarantee you'll fail?
Right. It sounds totally backwards.
It does. Seriously, think about it. Today, we are dismantling what might be the absolute biggest lie the self-help industry ever sold you.
All the myth of the finish line.
Exactly. I mean, we are constantly told to visualize the end state,
Right.
right? The cinematic montage where the music swells, you have this earth-shattering realization.
You put down the junk food.
Yes. You start running at 5 a.m., and suddenly you are just an entirely different person.
It is the great delusion of the overnight success. I mean, we are practically conditioned to believe that transformation requires this grand, sweeping gesture, a heroic leap from who we are today to who we want to be tomorrow.
But then you step into the real world. The alarm goes off in the dark. The gym is freezing cold. The laundry is piled on the chair. And that cinematic montage just completely shatters.
Right, because the landscape of actual human change isn't loud, and it isn't dramatic.
It is entirely invisible. It's unglamorous.
It's the absolute definition of a quiet, microscopic revolution. And the problem is, well, because these tiny shifts don't look heroic, we just dismiss them. We assume they don't matter.
And that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are plunging straight into the core philosophy of James Clear's incredible work, Atomic Habits.
It's such a foundational text.
It really is. And for you listening right now, we know exactly who you are. You're busy, you are insanely curious, and if you are anything like us, you're probably exhausted by the constant barrage of generic life hacks.
Oh, yeah. The information overload is real.
So real. So we are bypassing the surface level advice entirely today. We're not going to tell you to, just drink more water or put your phone in another room.
No, we are going after the root code here.
Yeah.
This is a fundamental exploration into the invisible architecture of your life.
Yes.
We're looking at the mechanics of identity-based change, the compounding power of systems over goals, and really how tiny, seemingly insignificant daily actions literally rewrite your self-image.
Our mission today is to act as your shortcut to the absolute most critical insights in this material. So whether you are commuting, walking the dog, or just sitting at your desk, grab your mental notepad.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start at the genesis of this entire philosophy.
Yeah, the origin story.
Because the author didn't just stumble upon this system while he was sitting in a cafe trying to optimize a perfectly comfortable life. He was violently forced into it by a catastrophic trauma.
The crucible that forged this methodology is essential context.
Mhm.
I mean, if you want to understand why small habits are a matter of actual survival, you have to look at what happens when all of your large capabilities are instantly stripped away.
The origin story in the text hits you like a freight train. Literally, it hits the author right in the face.
Yeah, it's brutal.
He's in his sophomore year of high school, right? He's standing on a baseball field. A classmate takes a full, aggressive swing with a baseball bat, and the bat just slips out of his hands.
Wow.
It comes flying through the air like a helicopter blade and strikes the author directly between the eyes. The physics of that impact are just harrowing. We are talking about a heavy, blunt object transferring all of its kinetic energy into a human skull in a fraction of a second.
It is so brutal. The text describes how the impact crushed his nose into a distorted U-shape.
Oh, man.
The force was so violent that the soft tissue of his brain slammed into the inside of his skull. In an instant, he has a shattered nose, multiple skull fractures, and 2 shattered eye sockets.
And the terrifying part is he doesn't even remember the impact. His brain just short circuits.
Right. He wakes up completely disoriented, blood covering his clothes.
And the medical cascade that follows is a nightmare. I mean, this isn't just a broken bone you put in a cast. The brain swelling begins. He starts losing basic cognitive function right there on the field.
Yeah, he couldn't even answer simple questions.
By the time the ambulance gets him to the local hospital, he can't remember his own mother's name. His body is going into shock and just begins shutting down.
He literally stops breathing. The local hospital can't even handle the severity of the trauma, so they have to airlift him to a larger trauma center in Cincinnati.
And then they put him into a medically induced coma.
They put him on a ventilator. Just imagine the whiplash of that for his family and for you. If you put yourself in his shoes for a second, you go from being a normal, athletic high school kid worrying about homework to lying in a coma with a swollen brain and a shattered face before dinner time.
It's unimaginable. And when he finally wakes up, the road back is agonizing. And I use that word intentionally. It wasn't just a slow recovery. It was an excruciating stripping away of his dignity.
He loses his sense of smell entirely, right?
Entirely. And the structural integrity of his face is so compromised that when he attempts to blow his nose, the air is forced through the microscopic fractures in his eye socket, and his actual eyeball bulges out of his head.
I read that and had to put the text down for a second. That is horrifying.
It really is.
He had double vision for weeks. He couldn't even drive a car for 8 months. But, the physical recovery is just the first layer of this crucible. The second layer is the psychological devastation.
Right, because his entire identity was wrapped up in baseball.
Exactly. His dad played minor league for the St. Louis Cardinals. This was the family legacy. This was his dream.
And that dream collides with his new physical reality. A year later, he finally gets back on the baseball field. He has clawed his way back just to stand in the dugout. And what happens?
He gets cut.
He is the only junior to be cut from the varsity team. He's publicly demoted to play with the sophomores.
He writes about the sheer heartbreak of sitting in his car after that demotion and just crying, just flipping through the radio, trying to find a song to make him feel better.
It's such a universal, relatable moment of defeat.
It really is.
Yeah.
But this right here is the pivot. This is why we are talking about this story today. When he eventually gets to college at Denison University, he is at the absolute bottom of the roster. His life is chaos.
He has absolutely zero capacity for grand, sweeping changes. He couldn't just decide to be an All-American athlete.
Right.
The gap between his current traumatized reality and that ultimate goal was astronomically wide. If he focused on the goal, the sheer distance would have just crushed him.
So he was forced, by sheer lack of alternative options, to rely on the microscopic. He turns to the only things he can actually control, and they are aggressively mundane.
Lowly mundane.
He focuses on building good sleep habits. He decides to turn the lights out early. He makes a point to keep his dorm room, which is usually a disaster for college freshmen, perfectly neat and tidy.
He starts lifting weights consistently, just showing up.
Notice what is missing from that list. There is no secret athletic training regimen. There's no revolutionary diet.
No, he is simply establishing a baseline of predictable, orderly behavior. But over years, these tiny, consistent actions began to compound. The neat room gave him a sense of control. The sleep allowed his brain to fully heal and his muscles to recover.
And the consistent lifting added 30 pounds of muscle to his frame. He bulks up from 170 to 200 pounds. He earns a starting role. Then he becomes team captain.
It's incredible.
And then the ultimate validation. 6 years after taking a baseball bat to the face, 6 years after his brain swelled to the point of near death, he is selected as the top male athlete at Denison University and named to the ESPN Academic All-America team.
What this narrative proves about the fundamental nature of success is staggering. It completely obliterates the overnight success myth.
Yeah, massive success does not require massive action.
Exactly. We convince ourselves that to lose 50 pounds or to build $1 million business or to write a novel, we need an earth-shattering period of intense effort.
But his story is a testament to gradual evolution. It is the aggregation of hundreds of microscopic, forgotten decisions. Now, let me pause here because I know what you, the listener, might be thinking right now.
You're thinking, okay, nice story.
Right. You might be saying, okay, that is an incredibly inspiring story about one guy in college, but is it a universal law? Or is it just a nice anecdote? To answer that, the text zooms out from the microscopic to the macroscopic. We go from a college dorm room to the global stage of international sports.
Dave Brailsford and British cycling.
Yes.
This is perhaps the most famous, rigorous, real-world application of this entire philosophy. You have to understand the context of British cycling before 2003. They hadn't just been losing, they had endured nearly a century of absolute, unmitigated mediocrity.
Mediocrity is almost putting it nicely.
It's true. Since 1908, they had managed to win exactly one Olympic gold medal. In 110 years, no British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France.
They were the laughingstock of the cycling world. Top bike manufacturers in Europe were literally refusing to sell their gear to the British team.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because they were terrified it would hurt their brand if other elite professionals saw the British riders using their bikes. Like, if the Brits ride our bikes, people will think our bikes make you slow.
That is a special, profound kind of terrible.
It really is. So into this environment of entrenched failure steps Dave Brailsford. He's hired as the new performance director, and he brings a relentless, almost obsessive commitment to a strategy he called the aggregation of marginal gains.
The entire philosophy is based on a singular premise. You search for a tiny margin of improvement in absolutely everything you do.
Break down everything you can possibly think of that goes into riding a bicycle. every single component. If you improve every piece by just 1%, you won't get a 1% increase in overall speed. You will get a massive compounding increase when you put them all together.
And they went completely unhinged with this. They started with the obvious physical elements. They redesigned the bike seats to be slightly more aerodynamic and comfortable.
They rubbing alcohol on the tires to get a marginally better grip on the asphalt.
They had riders wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain the absolute ideal muscle temperature while they were waiting to race. They implemented biofeedback sensors to monitor how each athlete responded to specific workouts.
But that's just standard sports science, right? Where it gets wild is when they looked for the 1% improvements in completely overlooked, bizarre areas.
Oh yeah, the massage gels.
Yes. They brought in a whole array of massage gels and tested them to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery by a fraction of a percent. They tested different pillows and mattresses to figure out exactly which combination led to the deepest REM sleep for each specific rider.
And then they dragged those exact mattresses from hotel to hotel during the Tour de France.
They literally hired a surgeon to come in and teach the riders the optimal way to wash their hands.
Why?
To reduce the probability of catching a cold by a few percentage points. A cold could cost you a fraction of a second on the track. They even painted the inside of the team truck completely white.
Dust. They were fighting dust.
Yes. They painted it white so they could spot tiny specks of dirt that might degrade the performance of the finely tuned bike gears. It sounds bordering on clinical paranoia.
But the results are undeniable. I mean, just 5 years after Brailsford implemented this system of compounding 1% gains, the British team went to the 2008 Olympics in Beijing and absolutely dominated.
They crushed it.
They won an astounding 60% of the gold medals available. 4 years later in London, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records, and they won 5 Tour de France victories in 6 years.
Okay, let me step in here and play devil's advocate on behalf of the listener, because painting a truck white and hiring a hand-washing surgeon makes for a fantastic cocktail party story.
Sure.
But mathematically speaking, does 1% really move the needle that much? Or is this just a motivational metaphor? Are we just trying to make ourselves feel better about taking baby steps while the rest of the world is sprinting?
Well, the math is precisely why this works. The text breaks down the formula, and it is entirely unforgiving. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. We understand how money multiplies through compound interest, but we fail to realize that the effects of our behavior multiply the exact same way. If you can get just 1% better each day for 1 year, the math dictates that you will end up 37.78 times better by the time you are done.
37 times better, not 37%. 37 times your original baseline.
Yes, but the blade cuts both ways. If you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, you decline almost entirely down to 0. The calculation puts you at 0.03.
Wow.
A tiny win or a minor setback seems completely inconsequential in the moment. It's just one skipped workout or one extra page read. But accumulated over 365 days, it defines the entire trajectory of your life.
The text uses this brilliant analogy of an airplane flight. Imagine you are flying from Los Angeles to New York City. The pilot is on the runway in LAX, and right before takeoff, he adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees to the south.
Just a tiny shift.
Right. If you are standing outside the plane, the nose of the aircraft moves maybe a few feet. If you are sitting in the cabin, you don't feel a thing. It is totally imperceptible.
But magnify that tiny 3.5-degree shift across the entire expanse of the United States. You don't land in New York. You land in Washington, D.C., hundreds of miles away from your intended target.
A microscopic change in your daily trajectory guides your life to a completely different destination. Your outcomes are simply a lagging measure of your habits. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your physical weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your clutter is a lagging measure of your cleaning habits.
You get exactly what you repeat.
You get exactly what you repeat.
And this introduces the most significant psychological barrier we face. I mean, if the math is guaranteed, if getting 1% better will mathematically make us 37 times better, why is it so incredibly hard to stick to a new habit for more than a week?
Why do we give up on the diet by Wednesday?
Exactly.
Oh, this is the crux of it. If I go to the gym for 3 days, I want to look in the mirror and see abs, and when I don't, I get furious.
Because human beings are notoriously terrible at understanding the concept of compounding time. Time magnifies the margin between success and failure, but our brains are wired to expect linear progress.
We want it now.
We have a deeply ingrained expectation that if we put in X amount of effort today, we should see an equal X amount of return tomorrow. But compounding math doesn't work that way. The most powerful, life-altering outcomes are delayed.
The text gives us the ultimate analogy for this. It is the ice cube. I want you listening right now to picture this. You are sitting in a room, and it is cold. Let's say it's 25 degrees. In front of you, on a table, is an ice cube. You decide you want to melt it, so you start putting energy into heating the room.
You're working hard?
You work really hard. You bumped it to 26 degrees. You look at the ice, nothing. 27 degrees, 28 degrees. You are sweating. You are putting in the work. 29, 30, 31. The ice cube is still sitting there, mocking you.
And most people quit at 31 degrees. They say, I put in all this effort, I raised the temperature 6 degrees, and my outcome hasn't changed at all. The system is broken. I am broken.
But then you push it to 32 degrees, and the ice begins to melt.
What's fascinating here is the work you did from 25 to 31 degrees was not wasted. It was simply being stored. The energy was accumulating in the environment. All the visible action happens at 32 degrees, but it was entirely dependent on the invisible work that came before it.
The author calls this space before the melting point the plateau of latent potential.
Yes.
The plateau of latent potential, or, as I like to call it, the valley of disappointment. This is where dreams go to die. We expect progress to be a straight 45-degree line up and to the right. When we start a new diet, step on the scale a week later, and see we actually gained a pound of water weight, we tumble right into the valley of disappointment. We complain that the ice isn't melting while we're sitting at 30 degrees.
But when you finally do break through that plateau, when you finally hit 32 degrees, the outside world will look at you and call it an overnight success. They only see the dramatic melting event. They completely miss the years you spent slowly, quietly heating the room.
Okay, so we understand the math. We know we have to survive this miserable valley of disappointment to get the compounding results. But how do we actually do it? Because society's answer is that you need a stronger goal.
Right, set a bigger goal.
Yeah. If you are stuck at 30 degrees, the self-help gurus tell you to make a vision board. Stare at a picture of the melted ice cube. Focus on the goal. But the text completely flips this on its head and argues that goals are actually the root of the problem.
This is a massive paradigm shift. Prevailing wisdom dictates that the absolute best way to achieve what we want in life is to set specific, actionable, measurable goals. But the author's realization, born from his recovery and his study of high performers, is that results have almost nothing to do with the goals we set, and nearly everything to do with the systems we follow.
Wait, I have to stop you. I'm going to be the proxy for the listener here.
Yeah.
Every corporate retreat, every productivity seminar, every life coach talks about goal setting, SMART goals, actionable objectives, OKRs. How can goals possibly be the problem? Aren't they essential for giving us direction?
They are useful for setting a direction, yes, but they are disastrous for actually making continuous progress. Goals are entirely about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results.
Okay.
Think about a basketball coach. The goal is to win the championship, but the system is how the coach recruits players, how they manage the assistant coaches, and how they run drills at practice.
Right.
If that coach completely ignored the goal of winning the championship, never talked about it, never looked at the trophy, and exclusively focused on having the absolute highest quality practice every single afternoon, would they still get the result?
Yes. As the legendary 49ers coach Bill Walsh said, the score takes care of itself. If you run the system flawlessly, the outcome is inevitable.
Precisely. And the text outlines 4 distinct crippling problems with a goal-focused mindset. Problem number 1, winners and losers have the exact same goals.
Oh man, survivorship bias. We are so blind to this. We look at the Olympian who just won the gold medal and we interview them. They say, I wanted this so badly, it was my ultimate goal. So we write a headline, desire and goal setting leads to gold.
Yep.
But we completely ignored the thousands of other athletes who had the exact same goal, who visualized the podium just as hard but came in 40th place. If the successful people and the unsuccessful people share the exact same goal, the goal cannot be the differentiating factor. It has to be the daily system.
That leads directly to problem number 2. Achieving a goal is only a momentary change. It is a temporary illusion of success. Imagine you have a messy, chaotic bedroom. You get a burst of motivation and you set a goal to clean it. You spend 3 hours scrubbing and boom, you have achieved your goal. You have a clean room.
But if you haven't changed the system, if you still have the exact same pack rat tendencies, if you still throw your jacket on the chair instead of hanging it up, you are going to be looking at a new pile of garbage in 3 days.
Exactly. You treated a symptom without ever addressing the underlying cause. You will be doomed to chase the exact same outcome over and over again because you never altered the system that produced the mess in the first place.
Problem number 3 is the one that really hit me. Goals restrict your happiness. The implicit, unspoken assumption behind every single goal we set is this: once I reach my goal, then I will be happy.
It forces you to continually defer your joy into the future. You are putting your happiness on layaway. It creates a brutal binary either-or conflict in your mind. Either you achieve the goal and you are a success, or you fall short and you are a failure. There is no middle ground.
It boxes you in so tightly, but a systems-first mentality is the antidote to that anxiety. If you fall in love with the process rather than the product, you don't have to wait for some distant future to give yourself permission to be happy. You can be satisfied right now, today, anytime your system is running successfully.
And finally, problem number 4. Goals are fundamentally at odds with long-term progress. They create a yo-yo effect. Consider marathon runners. They train intensely for 6 months, they run the race, they cross the finish line. And what happens the next day?
They completely stop running. I know so many people who have done this. The race is over, the medal is on the wall, and the motivation instantly evaporates because the goal has been achieved.
The purpose of setting goals is to win the game. The purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game. True long-term thinking is goalless thinking. It is a commitment to the cycle of endless refinement.
So what does this all mean? The text summarizes this entire segment with an absolute gut punch of a realization. It's a quote you need to write on a sticky note and put on your mirror. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That is the reality. When the motivation fades, you fall to the level of your systems.
And that explains the title of the book. An atomic habit isn't just a habit that is small in size. It is a fundamental unit in a larger system. Just as atoms are the building blocks of complex molecules, atomic habits are the structural building blocks of remarkable results.
Okay, let's transition, because this raises the ultimate practical question. We throw out the obsession with goals. We agree to focus on systems. But how do we design a system that actually sticks? How do we build habits that survive the valley of disappointment without relying on sheer willpower?
That's the challenge.
The text argues that the secret lies in a profound psychological shift. True behavior change isn't about what you do, it is about who you believe you are. We need to talk about the 3 layers of change.
Picture these 3 layers of behavior change as concentric circles, like the layers of an onion. The outermost layer is changing your outcomes. This is what you get: losing weight, publishing a book, hitting a sales target. This is where your goals live.
Moving inward, the middle layer is changing your processes. This is what you do: implement a new routine at the gym, decluttering your desk every Friday afternoon. This is where your systems live.
But the core of the onion, the deepest, most fundamental layer, is changing your identity. This is what you believe. It encompasses your worldview, your self-image, your deep-seated judgments about yourself and others.
Now, the text makes it clear that none of these layers are inherently bad. Outcomes are fine, processes are fine. The problem is the direction of the change. Most people try to change their habits from the outside in.
Right.
They start with the outcome, like, I want to lose 20 pounds. They figure out the process, I will eat salads. And they completely ignore the core identity, which is, I still fundamentally view myself as an unhealthy person who loves junk food. They build outcome-based habits.
To illustrate the flaw in this, the author gives us a brilliant scenario involving 2 people who are trying to quit smoking. Let's say someone offers them a cigarette. Person A declines and says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit."
Which sounds completely reasonable and polite.
On the surface, yes. But listen to the language. I'm trying to quit. Person A still fundamentally identifies as a smoker who is merely trying to do something different. They are hoping their behavior will magically change while they carry around the exact same core beliefs. Now, person B is offered the cigarette. They decline and say, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker."
I'm not a smoker.
It is such a microscopic semantic shift, but it reveals a monumental shift in identity. Smoking was part of their former life, not their current one. They no longer identify as someone who consumes nicotine.
And that is the crux of the argument. Behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last. It is neurologically unsustainable. I'll take it a step further. You may want more money, but if your underlying identity is someone who consumes rather than someone who creates, you will continually be pulled towards spending rather than earning.
Right.
You can have a brilliant new financial goal and a strict budgeting plan, But if you haven't changed who you fundamentally are, your old identity will sabotage your new plans every single time. True behavior change is identity change. I love to think of it like a smartphone. Think about your core identity as the operating system and your habits as the individual apps. You can download the shiny new Marathon Runner app. You can put it right on your home screen. But if your underlying operating system still identifies as a couch potato, that app is going to crash.
It's totally incompatible.
The OS will reject it. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner.
Because once your identity is involved, pride takes over. Once you actually believe you are a runner, you will fight tooth and nail to maintain that self-image. If you are deeply proud of your physical strength, you will never skip the gym, because skipping the gym would violate your understanding of who you are.
That makes so much sense.
When your behavior and your identity are fully aligned, you are no longer forcing behavior change. You are simply acting like the type of person you already believe yourself to be.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because this sounds like a catch-22. How do we actually change our identity? Because we can't just stand in front of a bathroom mirror, flex our non-existent muscles, and scream, "I am an athlete," if we've never worked out a day in our lives. The brain is way too smart for that. It knows we are lying.
Your identity is not set in stone, but it is based on evidence. You are not born with preset beliefs about yourself. Every single belief you hold right now was learned and conditioned through experience. The word identity itself is derived from the Latin words identitas, meaning being, and identitam, meaning repeatedly. Literally translated, your identity is your repeated beingness.
Your repeated beingness. I love that. So habits are the mechanism through which you embody your identity. Every time you make your bed in the morning, you embody the identity of an organized person. Every time you sit down and write a single paragraph, you embody the identity of a creative person. Every single action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
The vote concept is a lifeline for anyone listening who struggles with perfectionism. No single instance, no single vote will magically transform your beliefs. But as the votes build up over weeks and months, so does the undeniable evidence of your new identity. And here is the reassuring reality of elections. You do not need a unanimous vote to win.
Yes, you do not have to be perfect. You just need a majority. If you cast a few votes for bad behavior, if you eat a massive slice of chocolate cake, or you hit snooze and skip the gym, the election isn't lost.
No, not at all.
You just need to ensure that the majority of your votes are cast for the good habits. Habits matter not because they get you better results, but because they literally manufacture the evidence that rewrites your core beliefs about yourself.
So if we accept the premise that identity change is the true North Star of habit change, the next logical question is highly pragmatic. How do we actually program these votes into our chaotic daily lives? We know the theory, but how does the human brain construct these systems on a biological level?
Right. It's Tuesday morning, it's raining, you're tired, you're cranky. How do you get the votes? The text shifts gears here and gives us the neurological operating manual. It breaks down every single habit into a universally recognized four-step loop. We've all probably heard some version of this in Psych 101, cue, craving, response, and reward.
This is the invisible feedback loop operating behind all human behavior, constantly running in the background. The cue triggers your brain to initiate a behavior. It's a bit of information that predicts a reward. The craving is the underlying motivational force. You do not crave smoking a cigarette, you crave the chemical feeling of relief it provides.
Got it.
The response is the actual habit you perform, the physical action or mental thought.
Yeah.
And the reward is the end goal. It satisfies the craving and, crucially, it teaches your brain which actions are worth remembering for the future.
Try, fail, learn, try differently. Out of this four-step biological loop, the author distills the entire execution of his philosophy into the 4 laws of behavior change. If you want to build a good habit, you follow 4 rules. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying.
And the beauty of this framework is that if we want to break a bad habit, we simply invert those exact same laws. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying.
Let's spend some serious time unpacking these laws, starting with law number 1, make it obvious. This deals entirely with the cue. The problem with established habits is that over time, the cues become completely invisible to us. The plate of cookies on the kitchen counter, the phone buzzing in our pocket, we react to them on pure, unconscious autopilot.
To build a new habit, we have to make the cue blindingly obvious. The text introduces a highly effective formula for this called habit stacking. The formula is simple. After current habit, I will new habit. You are taking a desired, fragile new behavior and tying it directly to something you already do every single day without fail.
So instead of saying, I want to meditate more, which is vague and has no cue, you say, after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. The pouring of the coffee is an established, rock-solid habit. It becomes the unavoidable trigger for the new behavior.
But habit stacking is only part of the equation. The text introduces a concept that completely redefines how we view our surroundings: environment design. To explain this, the author references a formula from psychologist Kurt Lewin, created in 1936. At the time, the prevailing belief in psychology was that behavior was driven entirely by internal personality traits. Lewin shocked the field by writing an equation, B equals F of PE. Behavior is a function of the person and their environment.
Behavior is a function of the person and their environment, which means the space around you heavily dictates what you do.
Because on a neurological level, your brain is a prediction engine constantly scanning your environment for cues. If your environment is filled with friction and bad cues, your willpower will eventually deplete. We often beat ourselves up thinking we lack discipline or moral fortitude, but what we actually lack is a supportive environment. The text urges us to stop looking at our rooms as spaces filled with inanimate objects and start seeing them as spaces filled with relationships.
That blew my mind. The couch in your living room isn't just a piece of furniture. For one person, the couch has a strong relationship to reading. It is the cue to grab a book. For another person, that exact same couch is the cue to turn on Netflix, open a bag of chips, and zone out for 3 hours. If you want behaviors that are stable and predictable, you need an environment that is stable and predictable.
Think about the alternative. If you want to stop eating junk food, you could try to rely on willpower. You could keep the Oreos in the pantry and just try really, really hard not to eat them when you walk by.
Which works for exactly one day.
Exactly. Because self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term one. People who appear to have famously high self-control don't actually possess some magical reservoir of willpower. They simply design their lives so they spend less time in tempting situations. This is the inversion of the first law: make it invisible. If you want to break a bad habit, remove the cue from your environment entirely. Don't hide the Oreos, throw them in the trash, make the cue invisible.
Okay, so I redesign my environment. I take my running shoes and I put them right in the middle of the hallway, so I literally have to trip over them in the morning. The cue is blindingly obvious, but honestly, if it's 5:00 a.m., I can look right at those shoes, step over them, and walk straight back to bed. Just seeing the cue isn't always enough to make me act.
Which exposes the exact gap between knowing what to do and actually wanting to do it. The obvious cue only works if there's a craving attached to it, which leads us directly to law number 2, make it attractive. This deals with the craving. Why do we crave certain things and reject others? To answer this, the text dives deep into evolutionary psychology. Human beings possess a deep, ancient biological desire to belong. We are herd animals. We imitate the habits of our culture because fitting in is a survival mechanism. If you get kicked out of the tribe, you die.
So we are constantly scanning the people around us to figure out how to act. The text notes that we imitate 3 specific groups: the close, the many, and the powerful. We imitate the close, our friends and family. There is a wild study cited in the book showing that if you have a friend who becomes obese, your own chances of becoming obese increase by 57%. It's contagious.
We also imitate the many, the crowd. Whenever we are unsure how to act in a new situation, we look to the group for the default behavior. And we imitate the powerful, those with status and prestige. We are naturally drawn to behaviors that earn us respect, approval, and a higher place in the social hierarchy.
So if we want to build a good habit, one of the most effective things we can do is join a culture where our desired behavior is the normal behavior. If you want to read more, join a book club. If you want to ride a bike, join a cycling club. Because then you aren't just trying to bike more, you are adopting a shared identity. We are cyclists, this is what we do. The desire to fit in overpowers the desire to be lazy.
Another incredibly powerful psychological lever for making a habit attractive is the practice of reframing. Shifting your internal monologue from "I have to" "I get to."
Oh, like I have to cook dinner versus I get to cook dinner and nourish my family. I have to wake up early for work versus I get to wake up early, build my career, and provide for myself.
It sounds overly simplistic, but it physically alters the way your brain anticipates the event. It's about recognizing that all of our modern habits are simply new solutions to ancient desires. Playing competitive video games for 8 hours a day is a modern solution to the ancient desire to achieve status and prestige. Endlessly scrolling Instagram is a modern solution to the ancient desire for social connection and winning approval.
That makes total sense.
The underlying motives are the same. You can find healthier ways to satisfy those exact same ancient cravings if you reframe how you view the action.
That brings us to law number 3, make it easy. This focuses on the response. Now, I have to push back here because this law feels counterintuitive. We revere hard work. Great achievements are hard. Writing a symphony is hard. Running a marathon is hard. Raising children is hard. How on earth can we make running a marathon easy? Doesn't focusing on making things easy just turn us into lazy, unmotivated people?
It's a fair pushback, but it misunderstands how human energy is deployed. Energy is precious, and the brain is biologically wired to conserve it. It is fundamental human nature to follow the law of least effort. Given two similar options, we will naturally gravitate toward the one that requires the least amount of work. So the goal isn't to make the marathon itself easy, that's impossible. The goal is to decrease the friction associated with the starting action.
Ah, okay. Addition by subtraction. We remove the points of friction that sap our energy before we even begin.
Exactly. Think about a water hose that is kinked. You want more water to come out. You have two options. You can either turn up the valve and force more water through the kink, which requires immense pressure and willpower, or you can simply unkink the hose and let the water flow naturally. Making it easy is about unkinking the hose. If you want to go to the gym in the morning, the friction is finding your clothes, matching your socks, locating your keys. If you lay all of that out the night before, you've removed the friction.
And this leads to what might be the single most practical, actionable tool in the entire text, the 2-minute rule.
Mhm.
The rule states that when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do, period.
This often sounds ridiculous to high achievers. I'm going to read one page, I'm going to fold one pair of socks, I'm going to put on my running shoes. They think it's absurd to celebrate reading a single page when their goal is to read 50 books a year.
I fell into that trap. I tried to use the 2-minute rule for running. I'd put on my shoes, step outside, and then my brain would say, well, you're already out here, you might as well run 3 miles. And the next day, I didn't want to put the shoes on because I knew it was secretly a trick to make me run 3 miles.
That's the trap, isn't it?
Yeah.
The point of the 2-minute rule is not to trick yourself into doing a massive amount of work. The point is to master the habit of showing up. A habit must be established before it can be improved. You cannot optimize a habit that does not exist.
You have to standardize before you can optimize. That is such a profound concept. If your goal is to run a marathon, you have to scale the habit down from very hard to very easy. The progression looks like this. Run a marathon, then run a 5K, then walk 10,000 steps, then walk 10 minutes, then put on your running shoes. Your gateway habit is literally just putting on the shoes and tying the laces.
Right.
Because once the shoes are on, the momentum shifts. Habits are like the entrance ramp to a highway. They determine the path you take for the next chunk of time.
And finally, we arrive at the fourth law, which is the glue that holds all of this together, make it satisfying. This deals with the reward. We are exponentially more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying. But there is a massive biological mismatch we have to overcome here.
The evolutionary lag.
Yes, we are walking around in the modern world with Paleolithic brains. They were designed for an immediate return environment. For hundreds of thousands of years, if our ancestors saw food, they ate it immediately. If a storm was coming, they sought shelter immediately. The actions and the rewards were tightly coupled.
But modern society is almost entirely a delayed return environment. You go to work today, you don't get a paycheck for 2 weeks, you eat a salad today, you don't see a change on the scale until next month, you put money into a 401k today, you don't retire for 30 years.
And the human brain simply did not evolve to defer gratification for 30 years. This mismatch is the exact reason why bad habits are so incredibly hard to break. The immediate reward is fantastic, the sugar hit of the donut, the dopamine spike of the cigarette, but the ultimate outcome is disastrous. With good habits, the timeline is inverted. The immediate outcome is painful, sweating at the gym, sacrificing your budget, but the ultimate reward is great.
So if my brain is screaming for an immediate reward, my natural instinct is to just bribe myself. Like, if I suffer through the gym for an hour, I get to go home and eat a giant bowl of ice cream. But obviously, that completely self-sabotages the entire point of going to the gym. How do we actually bridge this delay without ruining our progress?
You have to attach an immediate feeling of success to the good habit, but the reward must be aligned with your desired identity. If your identity is, I am a healthy person, rewarding a workout with ice cream creates identity conflict. Instead, you use an aligned reward.
What?
Maybe your reward is sitting in the sauna, for 10 minutes after the workout. Maybe it's transferring $5 into a savings account marked new bike every time you skip buying a coffee. You need to manufacture immediate gratification to bridge the gap until the long-term compounding rewards finally arrive. Eventually, the identity itself becomes the reinforcer. You do it simply because it feels good to act like you, but in the short term, you need immediate, tangible reinforcement.
The text also drops a massive, fascinating warning here about how we track that reinforcement. We all love habit trackers. Checking boxes on a calendar feels incredibly satisfying. But there's a danger here known as Goodhart's Law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
This is a vital psychological caveat. Human beings will always optimize for whatever metric is being measured. Goodhart's Law explains how we lose the plot.
It's like the classic call center analogy. Let's say management tells their customer service reps that they need to handle 50 calls a day to hit their metric. Suddenly, the reps are hanging up on angry customers after 2 minutes just to get their call volume up. The metric was number of calls, but the actual underlying purpose was excellent customer service. They completely destroyed the purpose in order to win the metric.
We do the exact same thing to ourselves with habits. If we measure our health by taking 10,000 steps on our smartwatch, we start pacing around our living room at 11:30 p.m. just to make the watch buzz. We care more about getting the digital confetti than we do about actual physical recovery. If corporate executives measure success strictly by quarterly earnings, they will optimize for short-term revenue, even if it bankrupts a company's long-term stability. The human mind desperately wants to win whatever game is being played. We must ensure we are tracking the right things and constantly checking that the number hasn't replaced the purpose.
Okay, let's take a breath and look at the landscape we've covered. We've survived the valley of disappointment, we've thrown out our goals and focused on systems, we've completely rewired our identity, we've mastered the 4 laws, our cues are obvious, our cravings are attractive, our responses are frictionless, and our rewards are deeply satisfying. We are a runner, a reader, a creator. Our habits are running on absolute, flawless autopilot. We have won the game, right?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But the text takes a fascinating, somewhat ominous turn in its final chapters. It explores the dark side of habits, because the very automation that makes habits so powerful also creates a hidden, insidious danger.
The danger of mindlessness.
Yes. The entire upside of building a habit is that you can execute complex actions without consciously thinking about them. This frees up cognitive load for other tasks. But the downside is that when we stop thinking, we stop paying attention to small errors. We stop noticing what we're actually doing.
The examples the author provides to illustrate this are both hilarious and deeply alarming. He talks about a retail clerk whose job it was to take empty, used gift cards from customers and cut them up with scissors. She does this hundreds of times. She gets into a completely automatic rhythm. Then, a customer hands her an actual valid credit card to pay for a purchase. Without even a flicker of conscious thought, completely on autopilot, she takes her scissors and cuts the customer's actual credit card right in half.
Or the corporate worker who spent years as a preschool teacher walking into the office bathroom and asking her adult colleagues if they had remembered to wash their hands.
That's amazing.
Or the seasoned lifeguard who is so conditioned to his environment that he occasionally yells, "Walk," at random children running in a grocery store.
It just shows how deep the neurological programming goes. When a habit becomes completely automatic, we stop seeking feedback. We assume we are doing it perfectly because we've done it 1,000 times. And this brings us to the ultimate formula for true greatness, the expert level. The text argues that habits alone are not enough to achieve mastery. The formula is habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery.
You need a system for reflection and review. You cannot repeat the exact same actions blindly for 10 years and expect to become exceptional. You will just become exceptionally stuck in your ways. You have to remain conscious of your performance. You have to review your votes.
And the fallout from that mindlessness extends beyond just making silly mistakes. What does this all mean for our identity, the very concept that got us to this point?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we encounter the ultimate paradox of this entire philosophy. In the beginning stages of change, repeating a habit is absolutely essential to build up evidence of your desired identity. You need to latch on to that new belief. I am an athlete. I am an entrepreneur. But as you mature, those exact same beliefs can become a prison. They can hold you back from the next level of growth.
The brittle identity. This concept is profound. The tighter we cling to a specific identity, the harder it becomes to grow beyond it. If your entire sense of self, your entire voting record is wrapped up in the identity of I am the CEO of this company, what happens when you eventually sell the company? Or if your identity is I am a soldier, what happens when your service ends and you return to civilian life? What happens when you get a career-ending injury, just like the author did with baseball?
You face a complete existential crisis because the environment has shifted, but your rigid identity cannot. It creates a psychological brittleness. The investor Paul Graham has a great rule. Keep your identity small. The more you let a single, narrow belief define you, the less capable you are of adapting when life inevitably challenges you. The key to mitigating these identity crises is to redefine yourself broadly.
Instead of saying, I am a great soldier, you elevate the concept and transform it into, I am the type of person who is disciplined, reliable, and great on a team. Instead of, I am the CEO, you pivot to, I am the type of person who builds systems and creates value.
It's the ancient philosophy of flexibility. The text quotes the Tao Te Ching to illustrate this point perfectly. Men are born soft and supple. Dead, they are stiff and hard. The hard and stiff will be broken. The soft and supple will prevail. Like water flowing around an obstacle, your identity must work in harmony with changing circumstances rather than stubbornly fighting against them.
The hard and stiff will be broken. That's just a beautiful, haunting way to frame it. Don't let your carefully constructed identity become a cage. Use it as a tool to build your habits, but keep it fluid enough to evolve. Okay, as we bring this deep dive to a close, we've covered massive ground, from shattered eye sockets to Olympic velodromes, from the valley of disappointment to the limits of willpower. But I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, incredibly provocative thought. It's a concept drawn from the very conclusion of the text, an ancient Greek philosophical puzzle called the Sorites paradox, the paradox of the heap.
It asks a deceptively simple question. Can one single coin make a person rich? If you hand a person on the street one coin, they are not rich. If you add a second coin, they are still not rich. But what if you add another, and another, and another? At some specific point, you have to admit that one singular coin did finally tip the scales and push them into the category of being rich.
And we can say the exact same thing about atomic habits. Can one tiny change, one single atomic habit, transform your life? If you just read one page of a book today, does your life change? No, it's highly unlikely you would notice a difference. But what if you layer another page tomorrow? And another? And another? The holy grail of habit change is not finding one massive 50% improvement. It is finding 1,000 1% improvements. Each tiny habit is a coin.
In the beginning, these small improvements seem completely meaningless. They get washed away by the weight of your existing systems and the chaos of daily life. But gradually, persistently, as you continue to layer small changes on top of one another, the scales of your life start to move. The sheer weight of your votes accumulates. You hit a tipping point.
So for you listening right now, wherever you are, stop waiting for that cinematic montage. Stop waiting for the swelling music and the earth-shattering moment of motivation to strike you from the heavens. Stop staring at the massive, intimidating goal. Just look for your first coin today. Look for that one microscopic percent improvement. Unkink the hose. Standardize before you optimize. Just put on your running shoes. Read just one page. Put your phone in the other room for 10 minutes. Cast one single vote for the identity you want to inhabit.
Forget the finish line. Build the system.
You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. It is an entirely invisible architecture, but it is the architecture of a remarkable life. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Go find your coin today.